Now at 11, remembering Colts owner Jim Irsay. The team tonight confirming he passed away Wednesday afternoon.
It's great to see you guys and to hear the fans and to be out here.
Jim Irsay, a dedicated NFL team owner who loved the game.
This is professional football and we're in it to win.
Its fans.
We couldn't have done it without you guys.
And giving back to the community he loved.
So many areas of society need help.
Jim Irsay was 65. And thanks for inviting us in. You're watching 13 News at 11. Tributes right now have been pouring in tonight for Colts owner Jim Irsay. It's really hard to overstate the impact he had on this team and in our city. We've got Lime TV coverage for you tonight. Dom's got reaction from former Colts head coach Tony Dungy. We've got Logan Gay, who's been talking with fans today. We'll hear from both of them in just a moment. But first, we want to take a look back at Jim Irsay's life. Jim Irsay's major commitment to Indianapolis started back in 1984. 1 month after Indianapolis welcomed the Colts to town from Baltimore, Jim Irsay was named general manager and vice president of his father's team. He took over day-to-day operations in 1996. Then in 1997, Jim Irsay became the youngest NFL owner at just 37. Jim Irsay always said what was on his mind. He was clearly the most outspoken owner in the NFL. He led the way on many major decisions about the game he loved. Jim Irsay wasn't afraid to invest in his team to win. The Peyton Manning era lasted 13 seasons. It was the glory days under Jim Irsay's leadership. Jim's most cherished moment came in 2007. That's when his team won the Super Bowl on a rainy night in Florida. Jim Irsay was also willing to take chances, like in 2022 when he fired Frank Reich and hired Jeff Saturday to lead the Colts, despite the fact that Jeff Saturday had never coached in the NFL. Under his leadership, the Colts racked up more than 260 wins, 10 divisional titles, and made the playoffs 18 times. Jim Irsay loved his Colts, but he also loved giving to our community. Jim Irsay would often make massive private donations to people in need. He had a heart of gold and often showed up at training camp, handing out $100 bills to Colts fans. He gave millions of dollars to local organizations like Riley Hospital, Wheeler Mission, and the YMCA, just to name a few.
It's really going to be special. I mean, something like this never has been done.
Jim Irsay loved rock and roll. He formed the Jim Irsay Band. He'd perform with some of the biggest names in the business. And he also loved history. He spent millions of dollars to buy historic items. The Irsay collection is one of the biggest private collections in the world. Jim Irsay wanted to share that collection with fans. It would be displayed during free concerts around the country over the last few years. But Jim Irsay openly admitted that he had demons to fight in his life. In March of 2014, he was arrested for a DUI and drug possession. He spent an extended time in rehab, but came back stronger. In 2020, Irsay and his family started the Kicking the Stigma Foundation, raising awareness of mental health issues and shame associated to it. The foundation is very successful and impacting millions. Jim Irsay is survived by his 3 daughters and 10 grandchildren that he dearly loved. His legacy and impact on our world will not be forgotten. Jim Irsay was 65. And Dom joins me in studio tonight. I mean, really clear the impact that Jim Irsay not only had on our community, but also current and former players here in the Colts franchise, right?
100%. It's easy to see. You're absolutely right. Jim Irsay had a way with anyone who was in this Colts organization, of course, including Super Bowl winning head coach Tony Dungy. Dungy was, of course, the Colts head coach from 2002 to 2008. He reminisced with 13 News on Jim Irsay hiring him and his steadfast belief that the Colts could bring a Super Bowl back to Indianapolis. Dungy told us he's incredibly saddened by the news of Irsay's passing, and it came as a shock to him as he was at his home in Tampa. As he had time to reflect, his prevailing emotions were this. Jim Irsay cared so deeply about the Colts and about Indianapolis as a whole. He said it's hard to put into words how compassionate, caring, and special Mr. Irsay was.
He was really a great boss, and he was so compassionate. He cared about his people. And I'll never forget, again, going to the Super Bowl, and he took every member of our staff. It didn't matter what job you had in the facility, you and your spouse were going to the Super Bowl. And no one does that, but that was Jim Irsay's heart. And that's the way he was. He cared about the players, he cared about the staff, he cared about the city, and he just wanted the best for everyone. It's hard to even put into words just how special, how compassionate, how caring he was.
Stand by.
It's very high praise from someone who worked very, very closely with Jim Irsay. He said bringing a Super Bowl back to Indianapolis for the Colts and for Mr. Irsay was by far his favorite memory. Scott.
All right, Dom, thanks so much. Former players also remembering Jim Irsay tonight. Peyton Manning posting tonight on social media saying he's heartbroken to hear about Jim Irsay's passing, calling the Colts owner incredibly generous and passionate. T.Y. Hilton thanked Jim Irsay, saying, "I will forever hold our talks close to my heart." And Reggie Wayne posting, "This hurts my soul." Well, we caught up with sports fans tonight gathered to watch the Pacers game, but they also wanted to talk with us about the Colts owner. Our Logan Gay continues our live team coverage tonight. She's outside Lucas Oil Stadium. And Logan, so many memories about Jim Irsay all across our city.
Yes, that's right, Scott. I spoke with so many Colts fans who were so eager to talk to me about Irsay's legacy. While I was at the watch party, so many people, they were there to watch the Pacers, but they were distracted a little bit because of the Irsay news. Now, I spoke with many of them about what they say his legacy is not only for the city, but also for the state. Check out what they had to say.
It's really sad that Jim Irsay passed away. What he's done for the city, what he's done for Indianapolis, I will always appreciate, and I think it's important to just honor what he's done for not only the team but just for the city and the impact on a cultural basis on Indianapolis that he's had with us.
I was surprised, I didn't expect that. We're thinking about the Pacer game, and then we hear someone that's really important to Indianapolis, passed away. So that's really sad.
After Jim's passing, we need to look forward to the daughters taking over the team. I think all three daughters very well trained and they know what they're doing here. I really trust them as well.
Yeah, well, we're still waiting for confirmation about that, who's going to actually take over the team. But what we do know is Irsay is survived by his three daughters, Carly, Casey, and Kaylin, who are all vice chairs of the team. Scott?
All right, Logan Gay reporting live downtown at Lucas Oil Stadium. Thanks so much. So many of our colleagues here in the media have covered Jim Irsay for a long time. Talk show host Jake Query joins me in studio tonight. So what impact did Jim Irsay have on the city of Indianapolis?
Boy, in so many ways, Scott. I think everything from, if you look at schools or the downtown YMCA, I think areas that, Indianapolis at the time that the Colts came here was a town that was just emerging from the amateur sports capital into becoming a big league city. And obviously it was his father who was the owner at that time. But I think what Jim Irsay did beyond the philanthropy, which was widespread and oftentimes private, as you guys mentioned, citywide, I think he also brought a legitimacy ultimately to the city and to the franchise by bringing Eric Dickerson here, a transcendent star, and really starting to put Indianapolis as an NFL town, first and foremost, beyond just one that had inherited a team via a move.
Let's talk about the glory days of the Colts under Jim Irsay. I mean, in 6 years, they play in 2 Super Bowls, they win 1, and then Indianapolis hosts a Super Bowl, all in 6 years. What was that like covering him during those glory years?
It was something, because Indianapolis was the epicenter of the sports world literally every fall, because you're talking about teams that were getting out to 10-0, 12-0, 14. They were the model of stability within the National Football League. And I think Jim Irsay gets a lot of credit for a guy who had been a general manager when his father owned the team, and then having the ability, once he was the owner, to step back and let Bill Polian run that franchise and bring in Peyton Manning and let Tony Dungy, who you guys heard from, those three, letting those three guys guide the franchise and offering his financial support and his input. But at the same time, I think having a little bit of the humility at that time period of stepping back and knowing that that was the best direction for the Colts. And it was the best period without question for the franchise.
So clear that Jim Irsay loved the Colts,
yes,
loved his family, loved this community. And boy, he loved music, didn't he? I mean, he collected all these incredible pieces of these instruments that were worth a lot of money. And then he loved playing music. I mean, do you have any memories of those?
Yeah, I think his eccentricities with the music. I mean, the one thing I remember is when they won the Super Bowl and he dressed up almost like a Willy Wonka character.
I remember that. It was a great memory.
Handing out like a scavenger hunt for Super Bowl rings for people.
Yep.
And then when he started doing the collection and realized, Scott, that people had an interest in that, I think he truly wanted that to be as much a part of his legacy as the football franchise itself. And he wanted to share that. I think the thing that collection did and the music did is it showed his generosity, because it was a passion of his, but it was a passion because he wanted to share it with the community. And I think Jim Irsay truly felt like the shoe, as he calls it, the franchise, was as much this city's as it was his. And that's what made him a good owner.
And one of his last posts on X was rooting for the Pacers.
Correct.
That was something that happened earlier today.
And I think it was important for him to be somebody who was a champion for different things throughout the city. Everything. And I will say this, as somebody who shares this myself, I had a great respect for his love for animals, his love for the underserved. And I think that he took it upon himself to at times be a voice for the voiceless. And I always thought that was commendable.
Yeah, Jake Query giving us some great insight tonight into the life of Jim Irsay. Jake, thanks so much for being here. A memorial tonight on Monument Circle. Wanted to show you the horseshoe on the side of the AES building downtown honoring Jim Irsay. We'll take a break and be right back.